Hey, I'm Alex Rome, and today I'm going to show you how, I don't know why I always have to point. Today I'm going to show you how I mix and master my songs, because you guys always ask me to show you how to do that, or show you how I do that. And I'm going to show you how I do it with Logic's free plugins only. And the reason is because you guys also ask me to show you how to do it with free plugins, and that's what I've been doing for years before I bought these nice Fab Filter plugins. I have a lot to explain before we actually get into this, because all of these things I'm going to explain are things that I take into account when I'm mastering and mixing. So, mixing and mastering, when do they take place for me? Well, mixing, I have a very vertical workflow. I like to make the song into sections. I finish the section before I move on to the next section. I finish this completely, as you see here, and then I move on. I finish this, and then I move on. Versus horizontal workflows, where a good example of a guy with horizontal workflow, and it's a good video of it on YouTube, and it's as basic as it could be, is Avicii's In the Studio video, lays down his entire track, and then he goes back and fine-tunes it, EQs, side chains, chooses better sounds, but he lays down his entire track just to get the structure first. Those are people who like the horizontal workflow. Those are people who also would be mixing a little later than making the song now. So me, I mix as I go. So when it comes time to deal with plugins on my master fader, I don't have to do much mixing. What will generally happen is I'll have a limiter, and if I play my song and there's some sounds here that require too much limiting, because I don't like to do much limiting at all. I like to handle that with compression, and then I want to do the smallest amount of limiting as possible. So if a sound is too loud, I will just go into here and lower it so that sound doesn't need much of something like limiting. Okay, so another thing, you can see I have my master fader mastered, and my projects right here. You might have watched a lot of videos on YouTube where they have these nice bounced out stems and whatnot, or they have a single bounced out stem of the master song that is unmastered, and then they master that bounced out stem. I don't like to do that. I like to handle it right on the project. I mean, if you have a computer that can handle your mastering plugins, your high-powered mastering plugins, with a hefty project like this, then go ahead and do it. My computer can just about handle that, so I like to do that. Another advantage to that is if you have a bounced out stem, single stem, and you go and run your song through a limiter and you see a mess of sounds that need limiting versus the sounds that are too quiet, you can't go and mix the individual sounds that are giving you issues. So that's why I like to do this, because if my snare is too big or something and it's just my snare, I'd rather be able to turn the snare down rather than chop 10 decibels off of that snare signal with the limiter. So how do I mix? That's how I mix. I mix it, and then I leave everything. I mix it into a limiter, and I leave everything unbounced like this. I just master on the project. However, for the purpose of this video, to make this an easier project for you guys to watch, and with my screen recorder working, it will not run this project the way I want it to. So, and that's because of CPU issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I would bounce this out if I were to master this track the basic way. Mind you, I will say again, I'm going to use some Logic plugin, all Logic plugins to do this. This is how I've been mastering forever. ever. So what I do is I go to Bounce, Project or Section, and then I will show you the proper way to render your song. So by default, Logic doesn't have it set up like this. I think they would have something like the MP3 is selected or something like that. I don't know. But what you want to do is you want to click this box, the PCM box, make your file format a WAV, 24-bit resolution. Have this as your sample rate because it's the most basic. Dithering, we don't need any of that. And then all of this stuff you can just leave as is if it looks the same as mine. So then I'm going to go to Bounce. And then for organization, this song's called What? And I like to do What Unmastered, so you don't start mixing things up. And then you go to Bounce. And then it will bounce your song for you. So one thing that you can do with your unmastered track is you can just throw another audio track onto here, onto this project. If your computer can handle that size project, and master that track here with it soloed out, of course, and then you can just handle the mastering from there. I mean I've mastered a song like that, but that was a while ago. I don't know if it actually would have worked well, but the easiest way to do it is just to open up a new clean slate and then to import that audio file into the clean project. Alright, so we're just bouncing this out here, and as soon as it bounces we will get to work, and I'll show you all the things to consider when you're mastering your track. I do want to say right now is good things to have are nice studio monitor headphones, but you know, not everybody has that kind of budget. The best thing to have, I think, are studio monitors. I have a pair of Rocket 6s here. That if you were getting into engineering and mastering, that might want to be one of your first investments as far as something that will assist you in getting the best possible sound. But obviously all budgets are different, so you know, we might not be able to have these things. So the best thing you could do, I think, is to have as many sources of sound as possible. If you have a car, your car speakers will be great for reference after you have a mastered track, to check your track in your car, see what it sounds like. Skull Candy headphones, Beats, Bose, all great reference headphones because that's what most people in this world would probably have because they're the most popular headphones. So if you could acquire a pair of them for reference, that'd be great. Studio monitors, studio headphones, you know, anything. You want the most sources of sound as possible. Me, I have my studio monitors, I have studio monitor headphones, I have my car speakers, I have a little Bose Mini-Link speaker for like parties, just to see what it sounds like out of there, even though that's probably not the best source of something that can give you a reference. But you want access to a lot of reference speakers, so that's what I'm trying to get at. Alright, so now that we have our bounced audio file, I'm going to go into here and just import my track. You could slide it in or you can just navigate to it, doesn't matter. Come on, let's go. This computer's getting so slow. What unmastered? Import tempo. I don't think the tempo really matters at all. Okay. So here's my song. It's incredibly quiet. You see that this song is supposed to be white all the way up to the ceiling here, but you see it's incredibly quiet. And that is what mastering is going to help us do. It's going to make these levels a lot louder. So what I like to do is I like to listen to the song for anything that sticks out to me. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm just going to look at it. You see we have these nice peaks here and these nice even sounds here and nice peaks, and then if you zoom really far in, you can see these transients that are sticking up. This actually looks like it's mixed quite well because there's nothing really sticking out to me besides maybe something like that. And then we have a nice big transient here, which is what our limiting and compressing is going to handle for us. So when I'm mastering a track, those are the things I look for, things I know I'm going to run into. So this track is, like I said, I've mixed it during the duration of my time producing it, so it looks pretty evenly mixed. I do have some low valleys I'm going to try to bring out, though. These low valleys will always be the lowest parts of the song, but with mastering I will try to even those out, and so that's what I like to try to look at. So let's go to our loudest part of the song. This is where we get a little bit messier as far as dynamics. So I have a bunch of pieces of this area that I'm going to work on. So alright, so here we are. We have our track. That's what my track sounds like. So automatically what I'm hearing is a really loud bass line, and everything else is kind of being overtaken by that. So what I'm going to do is just add plugins that I like to use. One is the compressor, or you can go to dynamics and multipressor, but I'm going to show you the way I would do it with the compressor because I like just using one compressor. Multiband compressors, I just don't really fully understand them. I mean, I use them. They sound better to professional ears, but I don't like them as much as the single compressors. Then the adaptive limiter is the second thing. And then I typically have an EQ, and then that EQ gets like really messy with a bunch of shit usually, and so I add another EQ. For reference, I can just analyze this one and then mess around with that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress the song the way I would compress a song. So first thing I like to do with this compressor, actually, I should put it at the loudest point, is I like to give us some gain first. Let's zero this out, and then I'll give us some gain. Give us gain without peaking. That's what I like to do. So I guess that's enough gain to really work with. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this area of my song and look at these peaks here. So I got like key points I'm going to focus in on, and that's when I'm probably most likely going to start seeing compression happening. I like a really soft knee for And then my attack, I like to be as fast as I could without distortion. And then I try not to really sausage this one, but with Logic, this is where you kind of get the benefit of third-party plugins. So when I use the Pro C2, the Fab Filter Pro C2, you get to actually see what you're doing. It's not cool because something like this makes you start compressing without your ears. It makes you start compressing with your eyes, which is what I don't like, but it's so much fun doing that because you can do something like this. Play this song and all this stuff happening is just the activity, and then you can do something like this. And you can, this is just letting you hear only the stuff that's being compressed, so clearly my kick is pretty big and prominent. So it's mostly, I have like prominent vocal chops and kicks, and that's what's cool about that, because you can see it. But no, Logic's compressors are cool. I think after you really master this compressor, move on to the multiband compressor. I mean, I guess I could leave it there, and then the release, it's going to take you like 10 tries to get this where you want it. I start out with quick release, and then I see what that sounds like. And I'll play the same thing. That actually sounded way better with the long release. So I think I'm going to go with the longer release on that one. I think it's really cool. Sounds really good. So as far as the adaptive limiting goes, let me look at this, because let me see something. Yeah, so I had the auto on there. I didn't even realize. So it says auto release, but maybe that's auto gain. Yeah, I was gonna say, because it did sound better with the longer release. I'm like, I'm not crazy. So the next thing I like to do with this adaptive limiter is I like to check it. Before I go into the adaptive limiter, I like to check the regular limiter. And this is where you're gonna get the volume. How long have I been doing this? 20 minutes? This is where I get the volume, or you're gonna get the volume. So I'm just going to play this. So right now I'm just watching what triggers this limiter. Okay, so what I'm seeing is just a lot of percussive hits are triggering this limiter, which is good. That means my percussion is, it's punchy. It's what I want. So now I can go into this, and I can up the output gain. So I can like look. I can look at this meter now and see that it's very well against the top of the ceiling. It's not really dancing around that much, which is good, because it means my song has a good RMS. It's like stays pretty steady at the top. If your levels here are bouncing off the top, like, you know, going crazy all around this area, not really in a steady spot. And I'm not even saying your levels don't even have to be at the top. They don't even have to be smashing against the ceiling here. They can be you can have your mastered track be this loud, like maybe at the 3 or something, or maybe at the 6. That's pretty quiet, but whatever you like. If your levels are bouncing around and you've already compressed, then you gotta go back and compress all your stems again or something and make it more just an all-together glued track. And that's something that you would handle in mixing versus mastering. Mastering should be, you shouldn't need to do that much with mastering. I don't think you should need to do that much with mastering. I think you should rely on your mixing to really level this thing out. So I noticed like where I'm kind of bouncing around is after the snare hits, it loses some kind of energy. When the bass comes up, I lose some energy, but that's pretty normal. So now that's as loud as I could get with this kind of not EQ'd. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this EQ kind of before everything, because I don't like the EQ last. So if you have to add something after you master with the limiter, then you could potentially peak because you're adding gain that is not mastered with the limiter. Alright, so I'm going to go compressor and then this, because I didn't have a lot of gain showing there. That's way better. So on this EQ, I see some big peaks here. And that's obvious because it's where my vocal chop, which is the prominent sound in the drop, right next to the bass line. So that's normal. You might not want that sticking out too far though. So right now, use your eyes and kind of treat that little peak there. And so I'm going to go back to this drop here. So that one gets a little close to this area, which I think is the most bad sounding area to have mud. So what I would do is I would treat that kind of maybe with a little dip here. And then I would make sure I handled it just to push this all the way down. And then we could go back up. And then you can do something like that. And then we can move over to here and see where that peak goes. And so my peak, since my notes changed, my peaks kind of move into this area and this stays here. So something I might do is I would move that little dip via automation. The way I would do that is create a track and then I would automate like that. I'd go here, channel, and then I would find that peak and then automate the frequency to follow those like big peaks that shoot up there. And because what you essentially want is just it to sound all even. You don't want it to be changing that much because it's very noticeable. Everything you really do is very noticeable to certain people. I notice people with the professional ears, they hear everything. And DJs with the loud PAs hear everything. They're the ones that are most valuable in terms of who's going to tell you if your track sucks or not. So another thing, my bass is huge. So I'm just going to chop this off. We don't need that much sub bass. And so now it feels like a chunk was just chopped out of your song because you chopped all that bass out. But sometimes you get so used to mixing with whatever you're mixing with that you got to go reference like a professional track somewhere on the internet and see what their bass sounds like. So I've been listening to this bass over and over. I'm getting used to hearing it. It's not that loud anymore. It started out really loud, but now it's not that loud. So when I chop it, it just sounds like there's no bass, but your ears just aren't used to it. Your ears are exhausting as you master. So what a good thing to do is to go on the internet, reference some songs, turn the songs off, give your ears a break, go eat a sandwich, and then come back and listen to your song. So now I'm going to do that 30 hertz cut. This is essential for DJs because you're pretty much mastering. You know, a big reason to master is for those big PAs that pick up everything. That 30 hertz cut is pretty important. And then I like to give that lowest of the low, that low end of the kick, I like to give it a little punch. So my kick is punching at around 100. So I like to give it a little punch. If it doesn't need it, you know, props, but I always need to do this. I don't know why. It's barely noticeable. A lot of this stuff is so barely noticeable besides that bass cut. And then this is something I like to do. This just brightens that crisp on the top. And then I take this last one, and I might take this and spike the highs up here. But you have to be careful with stuff like this, because when I talked about the reference headphones, like the Bose and the Beats and things, especially the Bose, because my cousin has a pair of Bose, and these high spikes, Bose pick those up, like those, like skull candies and stuff that kids use every day. The population, what am I trying to say here? The most popular headphones would pick these up because those headphones are pre-EQ'd. They're not flat signals. So it's your EQ on top of them. And those sometimes tend to have boosted highs for brightness, to make every song sound bright and nice. So you would want to check an EQ like this out on a reference pair of Bose or something and see if it's too intense. I've boosted highs and listened to them and referenced them in cars and on those lower grade headphones, and they've come back sounding horrible on those. And those are the people that are going to be listening to your song if you're trying to release your song to average people. So that's a good idea to go reference that. But right now it sounds good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go throw this back before the compressor. That's very important because your compressor is going to compress what we've added here. And since we cut the prominent bass out, you can see we're having less compression being done. And so now our song is beginning to get really loud. And the reason for that is because we're cutting heavy parts of the song out, so other parts of the song have a chance to really shine through now. And so we can add more volume to the track and make it louder without distorting. So now, with the limiter and compression running and everything kind of where I want it, I would go and listen to this track, and now you'll probably hear some cracks and distortions or something, and that's when you have to take some volume off of the top. And so that beginning sounded really good for the amount of volume that we have. So right here I'm getting some cracks. And those cracks with those kicks hitting means that your song's just too loud, or that sample is wrong. Like, that sample is going to give you headaches until the day you die. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you have a shitty sample that you can't make right, so you have to just replace the sample. A lot of times samples have really big waveforms and small sample values, so what you would want to do is just get rid of that sample. This sample I know because I already mixed this song and mastered it prior, so the sample, there's nothing wrong with the sample. So what I would have to do is kind of lower the volume. Or another thing you can do is automate that area, because I listened to the drop and there was no cracks in the drop, or at least not that I could hear. So you're taking a risk when you automate this, because you're leaving this drop as loud as you mastered it originally. And what that means is there could be cracks in there that you just don't hear yet, and they're going to bother people because it's going to be mastered too loud. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit more than a decibel off the top and see what happens when I go back to here. I'm going to turn my volume up so I can hear this better. Alright, so now what I'm going to do is I have what I think is mastered. I'm dancing around a little bit here, which means it's not smashed against the top, and that would be one of those things that takes me a while to figure out why that is happening. Because what I want to do is I want this really as loud as I can make it without distorting. So what I'm going to do is bounce this out, and then I'm going to reference another track. And then I would go back to really fine-tuning this and trying to find out why it's kind of bouncing around there. Mastered what version 1. Mind you, all my mastered versions, I average about like 6 different mastered versions. And your mastering's never really over. I mean, you always listen to your song and you're like, oh, I wish I could have done that. But mastering's just never over. It's just one of those curses, but you have to do it. So, I don't want that. I don't need that. Just get another track here. Let's turn all of this stuff off. Import our new mastered version. And let's see what we're working with. Alright, so straight off the bat, it's mastered pretty quietly. It's got some punchy transients. Those transients weren't things that I had an issue with at first ear, though. So that's one of those things. I can listen to this, what I have here, I can listen to that for like a week or two, and then I'll start realizing that these have to be chopped. Or maybe they're perfect, maybe they sound okay, and I don't need to chop them. But that's just something that will come in time, because I don't hear that right away. I just don't. I don't know if it's because my ears have not been trained for 10 years or something like that, but these might be things that we need to take care of, or they might be things that are just fine. straight away, I see I have some low valleys here that I have to find out why that is happening, because I don't like that. I like a better, a thicker all around signal. So that's definitely something I would consider making perfect, and that looks like something that is around the mixing, because that kick kills it. These I just know are the kick, and then that, for some reason, that bass line just doesn't have the power. So I don't know, but like then again, like when I was sitting there listening to it, it didn't sound like anything was wrong. So let's go drop in our reference track and compare what we have. So I guess like this might not be a bad idea. I'll compare the track that I think sounds good, the version of this mastered track here that I think sounds good. I mastered this with different plugins, with the third-party plugins that are a little bit higher power, and straight away, those low valleys I was talking about are not that low here. The limiting is not a big thing here, which is what I go for. I don't like to limit. Looks like I compressed this one better, or the compressor I used was better, and that's the difference between the third-party plugin. You can see this has got more thickness than those, but yeah, that's the difference between a Logic plugin and a third-party plugin. But that's the difference between any kind of native plugin versus more higher powered plugins. So yeah, just looking at that would be my difference. I have this nicely squeezed drop versus this one. Looks like I had trouble squeezing that. First off though, I'd probably go into this, tighten the release, and see if that makes a difference in those little swells, and then I can concentrate on what's making that happen, because sometimes you don't really want a slow release or quick release because it'll distort. I mean, yeah, that's what I'll do. So now you gotta listen to your song 1,000,000 times, 1.5 million times, and decide what you need to do different in the mixing, mastering. So yeah, there's your finished mastered song. So that's how I would do it. If you learned something, that's awesome. Give me a subscribe. Just hit the subscribe. You don't gotta like my videos. Just subscribe. That'd be cool. Anyway, I'm Alex Rome, and until next time, I'll talk to you soon.